Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
This is a short course on Bhasha Mahabharatas, but I will primarily be concerned with one Bhasha Mahabharata, namely the Mahabharata composed by Sarala Das. Sarala Das is celebrated as the Adi Kavi of Odia literature, and with him started the Puran writing tradition in Odia language. And his contribution to this tradition is unparalleled. No one has been able to contribute as much to this tradition as he who created it. But before we do all that, with great reverence, I remember the great poet Vyasa, all the Vyasa poets who retold his Mahabharata in their respective languages. Now, there is one story and there are many renderings. We can say that there is these writers of Bhasa Mahabharata, these writers of Bhasa Mahabharatas did not translate Vyasa's Mahabharata. They retold the Mahabharata. They reconceptualized the Mahabharata story and retold it in their respective languages. Now, when they retold, the story underwent changes in many ways. It is not just the core story was retained, and lots of stories and lots of stories were added to the story. The core story was retained, but probably the core story was retained, but let me say, it is not the core story really, but the core of the core story was retained. And we will see how the core story was retained and it was rendered in different ways. Let us talk about the Kurukshetra war itself. In fact, more correctly, let's talk about the start of the Kurukshetra war. So, we go to the Kurukshetra battlefield, and as we go to the Kurukshetra battlefield, and there we see the great Kaurava army and the equally great Pandava army facing each other. The war hadn't started, and Bhishma blew his conch, and after Bhishma blew his conch, signaling that the time had come for the war to start, Krishna and Arjuna and others blew their respective conchs. So, the signal was given. At that time, Arjuna requested Krishna, drive me to the center of the battlefield. I want to see who all I am going to fight against. So, Krishna took him to the battlefield. Krishna took him to the center of the battlefield, and there he saw Bhishma, Drona and his brothers, cousins, with whom he was to fight. Arjuna said that he was not willing to fight against people who are vulnerable. He was not willing to fight against Bhishma, his loving grandfather, Drona, his teacher, and Kauravas, his brothers. The Kauravas may have committed crimes against them. They were atatais They had robbed them of their kingdom. They had done great harm to them, but they were brothers after all. They belonged to the same clan, and he was not going to fight against them and kill them. So he said that he was not going to kill his guru, he was not going to fight and kill his grandfather, he was not willing to fight and kill his brothers. And saying this, he dropped the bow, Gandiva, on the floor of the chariot. And Krishna, we all know what Krishna told him. Krishna intervened at that stage, and Krishna told him that what he was doing was not right. People would consider him to be a coward, he said. If he leaves the battlefield, if he decides not to fight, then people will think that he was a coward. And Krishna said that if you win, then you get the pleasures of the world. You win Rajya, you win all that is pleasurable in the world. If you lose, you go to heaven, you go to Swarga. So you are not a loser anywhere. Win, and the pleasures of the earth, the pleasures of the world are with you, are yours. You lose, the pleasures of heaven, Swarga, are with you. So you are not a loser. You gain Swarga, or you gain, you gain you gain the kingdom, or you gain Swarga, whatever. So you should not be concerned about all these issues. So so either way you are not a loser. But Arjuna said that he didn't care for the pleasures of the heaven. He didn't care for the pleasures of Swarga. He didn't long. He neither cared for the pleasures of Swarga, nor did he care for the pleasures of the earth, the pleasures of the kingdom. Whatever the kingdom could offer, he was not willing to. Killing brothers, and killing guru, and killing the grandfather, nothing would compensate that. So he said that he could get nothing, either in Swarga or in Martya, he could get nothing to compensate that. That is what he said. And Krishna said that, look, you are not really killing anybody. You are only killing bodies, because the Atma who resides in the body but is not a part of the body. Atma doesn't die. Nothing can kill Atma. Fire cannot kill Atma. Sword cannot kill Atma. Water cannot kill Atma. There is nothing. Atma is imperishable, deathless. So Atma could not be killed. So all that will happen is you will be killing only the bodies. And what is the importance of bodies? Atma itself chooses to discard its body when the body grows old, and the Atma chooses to discard that body and take a new body, take a new form. Exactly as the birds give up their nests when they no longer serve their purpose. So you should not worry about killing anybody, because you are not really killing anyone. The essence is permanent. Body which is temporary, which is perishable, will perish. So you should not really be concerned about this. Your duty is to fight in the war with all sincerity and devotion. This is what is said essentially. Rest of it, he showed Arjuna his true form, his universal form, his great form, Vishwarupa. But those things, we need not go into those things at this point of time now. So Arjuna finally was willing to fight. That story, this we all know. Now, the important point to note here is the idea that Arjuna was unwilling to fight. Arjuna felt that fighting would be against ethics. So he was not willing to fight. Now, if Arjuna's unwillingness to fight is the theme. One way it is executed is the way I just mentioned. Vyasa has executed this theme or given expression to this theme in this way. An unwilling fighter finally joined the war, and the story is told by Vyasa in the way in which we just, in the way in which I just mentioned. Now look at the alternative rendering. A story can have multiple renderings, and look at the alternative rendering. The alternative rendering is this, and this alternative rendering is done by Sarala Das. So Arjuna goes there. The two armies are facing each other, and Bhishma looked so powerful and Bhishma looked so threatening that the Pandavas were not willing. The Pandava army did not have the courage to attack the Kaurava army. So Krishna said to Arjuna that, look, your army is, he told him, look, you come up. He told him, look, you attack the enemy first. You shoot the first arrow. So Arjuna said, let me see who I am going to fight against. So Krishna, he saw them and he said, Pitamaha Bhishma, he has been so fond of us, I am not going to fight with him. Drona, he is my teacher, I will not fight with him. Ashwasthama, he is my teacher's son, he is venerable to me. Bhurishrava, no. Karna, no, he is my brother, and a brother is like an elder brother is like a father. I cannot fight Karna. So Shakuni, he says that Shakuni, he is actually a well-wisher of ours. He only pretends to be a well-wisher of the Kauravas, but he is actually working for our good. How can I know this? And you know this. He tells Krishna, how can I fight him? And my brothers, no, I do not want to fight them. What will happen? I don't want to fight them. So I don't want to kill. Let them kill me. I don't care. Or let them attack me. I will counterattack. He had no problem in fighting. He had no problem in joining. He had no problem in killing any one of them. He was only saying that he would not initiate the fighting. He said he is not going to if Bhishma attacks him, he will attack. Bhishma, unlike in Vyasa Mahabharata, Bhishma did not enter the battlefield saying that I would not kill any Pandava. No, Bhishma had entered the battlefield with the intention of killing, and Arjuna had entered the battlefield with the intention of killing. He knew who were the people who were fighting, and he knew that he was going to kill. He knew who were the people who were going to fight. He knew who were the people who were going to face, and he would engage himself. He would engage in a fight against them and would kill them. But the basic point is that he would not be the first to start the war. Let the war start. Let them attack me. I will counterattack. That is what he said. And then what Krishna did was interesting. What Krishna did was, he did not say a word to Arjuna. So Arjuna told Krishna that he would not start the war. He would not attack Bhishma. He was a well-wisher. He would not attack Drona because Drona was his teacher. And Krishna said, then what about Karna? He said, he is like my elder brother. He is my elder brother. And an elder brother is like father. How can I attack him? What about Shakuni? He said, Shakuni, you know that Shakuni is actually working for us. Although he pretends to be working for Duryodhana, he is actually working for us. We know that. So how can I attack Shakuni, who is a well-wisher of mine? So he was unwilling to attack any one of them. And he said that, look, if they attack me, I will not hesitate to counterattack. and I will not hesitate to fight. But I will not start the war. And then he said, the one who starts the war, the sins of the war accrue to him. The war is a sinful activity, and all the sins come to the person who starts it. He will have no problem to counter-attack, but he will not attack. Now Krishna did not say a word to him. He got off his chariot and went to Yudhishthira and told Yudhishthira that, look, your brother is unwilling to start the war, he is unwilling to fight. And Bhima was around, and Bhima said, command me, I am ready. If Arjuna is not willing to start the war, start the fighting, I will attack. And Krishna said, go and attack Dushasana. As Bhima was going to attack Dushasana, Yudhishthira stopped him and said that what Arjuna has said is right. Therefore, let me make a last minute effort. And he goes to Duryodhana and says that give us just one village and let us not fight. And it is not just a case of the Pandavas and the Kauravas and their relatives. So many innocent soldiers are there. All of them will get killed. Many of them will get killed, from both sides. Why do this? And that is where Duryodhana said, I will not give you anything, not at all, without a fight. I will not even give you the land that is covered by the tip of a needle. This statement, this is what he said at that point of time. And Yudhishthira then said that, look, if that is the case, then this is a war between us brothers. So you 100 Kauravas and we 5 Pandavas, we are the ones directly concerned with the war. So let us fight, you 100 and we 5. The fight will be restricted to these. Let everyone else go back. It is not their war, it is our war. Duryodhana said nothing. And then as Yudhishthira returned disappointed, he went to Bhishma for blessings, he went to Drona for blessings, he went to Ashwasthama for blessings, he went to Karna for blessings. Everyone blessed him victory. And Yudhishthira said that, look, now the war will start. All that I am saying is, whoever in the Kaurava army wishes to fight for dharma and wishes to fight for dharma, please come and join me. I will guarantee, I guarantee him protection. As long as the Pandavas are alive, he will remain alive. The only one who changed sides was one of Duryodhana's brothers called Durdasa. He was called Durdasa. So Durdasa was the only one who chose to change the sides. Now Durdasa said that he would fight, he would come to the Pandava side, and he was leaving the Kaurava army and he would come to the Pandava and would join the Pandavas. But before he could cross over, Duryodhana got extremely angry, and Duryodhana asked his army, to attack Durdasa. And at that time, Yudhishthira was on the side of the Kauravas, on that side of the battlefield. So Durdasa took Yudhishthira onto his chariot, and Yudhishthira was without any weapon at that time. He had just gone for negotiation with Duryodhana. He had taken no weapon. He was defenseless. He was weaponless, and that is where he went. That is how he went, and Durdasa gave him protection. So Durdasa was fighting still on the side of the Kauravas, on that side of the battlefield. He was fighting the army of the Kauravas and giving protection to Yudhishthira. And there was so the war started. There was a lot of commotion. And when there was a lot of commotion, then Arjuna asked Krishna, what is happening? Why is there so much noise? So Krishna said, look, I don't know. So So he asked Hanuman on the top of the chariot, on top of Nandighose, that was the name of the chariot. So he asked Hanuman, what is happening? Hanuman saw things from a distance and told him that the war has started and this is what has happened. Duryodhana is fighting the Kaurava army and Yudhishthira is in his chariot. He is giving him protection. Then Arjuna said, take me there. Then he said, Krishna said, look, you were saying that Yudhishthira had gone to his own brothers. So now why are you saying, Yudhishthira is still in the company of his brothers? Why are you asking me to go and take you there, and why do you want to fight? So Arjuna said, don't taunt me, take me there and join the fight. So that is an alternative rendering of Arjuna's unwillingness to fight and his joining the fight. That is the story. So this story has been rendered in two different ways. Now, look at Vyasa's story. And Krishna's look at Vyasa's story, and Krishna intervenes, and the entire discourse is one of the richest discourses available in world literature on profound questions of life, death, and dharma. Many issues are raised, and they are discussed at a level of great abstraction and depth, and they are very profound. They reflect a lot of profound thinking. Nothing of this happened here. So the profundity is lost, and many people say, many scholars have said that many scholars have said that Sarala's rendering lacks the dignity of Vyasa's rendering. Let me just repeat it. Let me just sort of draw your attention to this. The central issue was Arjuna being unwilling to fight and finally willing to fight. That is the issue. That has been converted to stories. So that has been converted to stories, rendered into stories. Now, in one story, Krishna intervenes and talks about the things that we just mentioned: life, death, nature of the essential reality, and all those profound discussions on what duty is. But here, nothing of that sort happens. Krishna said nothing, doesn't intervene, and just we know what it is. Now, many scholars have said, in fact, that is a general opinion among the critics, that Sarala's rendering lacks the dignity and profundity of Vyasa. There is no abstraction here. Okay, in Sarala's rendering, you almost think it almost looks like a street fight. How a street fight started. Whereas there it's very different. So the dignity is not there. That is one of the criticisms leveled against Sarala Mahabharata. Let's reconsider things a little. Let's look at it a little more closely. What Sarala has done, and let's look at it a little more closely. The intention here in the following discussion, that is what I am going to say now, is not to say that one rendering is better than the other. These are alternative renderings, and these renderings took place at two different periods of time, in different cultural contexts, in different philosophical backgrounds. So, it is not a question of comparing them to say which one is better, which one is better. That is a kind of futile comparison, and that is not the intention. And we are looking at these two texts as works of art, as literary compositions. So it is literature for us. So two different poets have rendered the same theme in two different ways. We compare because this kind of comparison in a way is inevitable. After all, Sarala Mahabharata is a retelling of Vyasa Mahabharata. So, we can read Sarala Mahabharata independent of Vyasa Mahabharata, as though it is an autonomous text. But if we remember, that is a retelling. then, and that then if we remember its retelling, so the kind of so the comparison comes constantly to our mind. In fact, comparison is useful. In fact, comparison is important because it enriches our understanding of what the poet has done. It gives us great intellectual satisfaction. If we don't compare, we miss that. Comparison always has this advantage, or comparison always has this benefit. I mean, comparison always is important because it enriches our understanding of both or any one of them. So, having said this, now let us see what happens. I mean, let's see. Here is here is Arjuna, who says that killing is not his problem. He had come prepared for that. He is not nervous. Nothing happens at that point of time to him. He has come prepared. He knows that to win the war, they have to be killed. But then he says he would not be the first to fight because of the belief that war is sinful, and if you are a part of the war, if you are participating in the war, you should not initiate it, because the one who initiates it, all the sin accrues to him. The logic is very simple. You shoot the first arrow, or you hit somebody with a mace, and then there is a counter attack, and the counter attack can always be described in terms of self protection. So then there is a counter attack, then you attack. So so everything else, then it becomes a kind of routine attack. Then it's a kind of, each one is trying to save himself. Okay, but the person who started it, okay, so he is the one to whom all responsibility of the war would, he is the one to whom all the sin of the war would accrue. And Arjuna's problem is also Yudhishthira's problem, namely, there will be innocents who will be killed. It is not very often that people have talked about the innocent soldiers. They have never become, it is not that people are unconcerned about them, but they never became the focus of discussion. That look, innocent soldiers are important. It is not their war. And this idea is executed so nicely when Yudhishthira says that it is a war that will decide the issue of inheritance, the issue of succession. It involves 100 Kauravas and 5 Pandavas. Why call others? They are all, it is not their war. So this important question as to those who are directly concerned with the war must involve themselves in the war, and the rest of them need not, should not, because involving them means creating a condition where innocent blood will be shed. So this is an extremely important moral question, and this is something which you don't find in the alternative rendering. That is, in the original rendering you don't find this. War has to be fought between those who are directly concerned with it. The rest of them would get, the rest of them are, it's not their war, and if they are killed, the blood of the innocents, it would amount to creating a condition where the blood of the innocents would flow. So that is the question. And about starting of the war, see, war, if you look at Sara Mahabharata, see, war was inevitable in the sense that there cannot be two different claimants for the same throne. It's not possible. So when logic fails, when argument fails, when persuasion fails, what else can you do? You come to the battlefield for a solution. Some issues have to be sort of sorted out at that level, because there cannot be a situation where there will be two serious contenders for the same thing, for the throne. It's a very serious political issue. So so there cannot be, so it has to be sorted out at some level. So war may have a place in the society. Maybe there are problems which have to be sorted out in the battlefield. We will re-examine this question later. I am only saying it, take it for now that war may be inevitable. When everything fails, war may be the last option, may be an undesirable option, but it is not ruled out. So, war has a place, but at the same time, it also is sinful. So, this was the problem in some sense for Arjuna as well in the other case. When Arjuna said that they are atatais, this is what Vivek Devra very correctly points out. When Arjuna said they are atatais, but I will not kill, because they are brothers, they are cousins, so I don't want to kill. They belong to the same Kula, so I don't want to kill, because Kula Dharma would be destroyed, and sort of Varna Sankaras would be born. So there will be sort of mixing of cultures, which would not be nice. Things of this kind, as he said. This is the kind of thing he said. But here, what happens is that nothing of So this is what Arjuna had said there. Okay. Anyway, so that question is raised there. The conflict between what is dharma. If somebody is an atatai, if somebody has done an act of crime, he needs to be punished. So that's an act of dharma. But an ethical act is that no matter who he is, if he is your cousin, if he is your guru, if he is your grandfather, then you cannot kill them. So there was a conflict between dharma and what is right, between duty and ethics. That was the conflict there. Here also it is the same thing, conflict between what should be done, dharma. It was, Arjuna's, they had done enormous harm to them. So it was right for Arjuna. That is why they came to the battlefield in the first place. Why did they come to the battlefield? They came to the battlefield because Duryodhana and the Kauravas had done them enormous harm, and that had to be, and they had to sort of enormous harm. So punishing them in the battlefield would be no crime. So that would be in fact dharma. That is why they came to the battlefield. That is on the one side. The other side is that it is aniti, it is adharma, and it is that it is absolutely sinful to kill, and to kill innocents. So I will not. So the importance of saying that I do not want to start the fight, I do not want to shoot the first arrow. The importance is this, that war is a sinful thing, and I would not, and all the sin would accrue to me if I start the war. He had come to the battlefield because the Kauravas had to be punished. But on the battlefield, this is the idea that occurs to him. So essentially the same kind of problem. The issue here is what is right, what is dharma as against what is ethically correct. Here also the same thing. Now there Krishna resolves it in a certain manner. Krishna says that it is your duty to fight. Therefore the duty issue is, Krishna says it is your duty to fight as a Kshatriya. As a Kshatriya, your duty is to protect dharma, protect the righteous. So that is what you would be doing. And as far as the sin part is concerned, Krishna says, you do your duty, but surrender the fruits of, but you do your duty and surrender to me. He says that, as we know, he says, as we know, in the 66th sloka of the last adhyaya, Astadas Adhyaya, in the 66th sloka, he says that give up all duties and surrender to me. I will save you from all sins, grieve not. That is what he says. So the sin part is taken care of. The conflict was between duty and what is ethically incorrect, that is sin. That was Arjuna's situation, and that is taken care of. Krishna says it is your duty to fight, and he says, I will save you from all sins if you surrender to me. So he resolves it. And here what is the resolution? Here the resolution is by Arjuna himself, that look, I know it is my duty to fight, but I will not fight unless I am attacked. So he takes care of both. This is how he takes care of the dharma side and the papa side, the papa punya kind of side, papa punya side. So he says, so this is how this issue is treated there in Vyasa Mahabharata, and this issue is treated in Sarala Mahabharata. There Krishna intervenes. Here Krishna does not intervene, and here Arjuna himself decides what is right to do for him and what is not right to do for him. See, some decades after Sarala wrote his Mahabharata, there came a great poet, and his name is Jagannath Das. He wrote Srimad Bhagavata in Odia. And in Srimad Bhagavata, he said, Manusya dehe dibya jnana dekhi santosa bhagavana. That seeing dibya jnana, the divine knowledge in the human being, Bhagavan God was happy. And that means that human beings themselves have a very developed sense of what is right and what is not right, and they can resolve these issues without intervention of God. So God doesn't have to intervene. Human beings, they have Dibya Jnana, and in terms of Dibya Jnana, they will resolve these issues. So Krishna's interference is not necessary. Arjuna is good enough. So there the war started because of divine intervention. The idea is, because if Krishna had not advised Arjuna, then probably Arjuna would not have fought. We don't know what consequences what would have happened, but let's imagine that he wouldn't have fought, going by the story. Here it is not like that. And look at this. There we can say that explicitly and directly Krishna was involved in the war through his advice, through motivating Arjuna to fight, through arguments, and by showing him his universal form. So that also was a kind of argument, that look, this is what I am, and you see Bhishma, Drona, Jayadratha, all of them have been killed by me. All that you are going to do is you are going to be a nimitta. And Arjuna saw this. Okay. So in some sense we can say that Krishna's involvement in the war was explicit, was direct. Here Krishna's involvement in the war was nothing. Krishna was rejected, in the sense that when Krishna asked Dusasana, when Krishna asked Bhima to fight Dusasana and start the war, Yudhishthira said no. And after that Krishna had no role. You see, it was the idea is, it is the war of men, it is a human war. Humans would decide what they would do. It is not somebody else. Ultimately at another level, at the cosmic level, things are decided. God decides. Human beings only do what, human beings are only nimittas. That is true. And that insight is not absent in Sarala Mahabharata. Krishna, it was not absent. But at a more Laukik level, Krishna did not intervene. It is the human beings who decided whether there will be war or there will not be war. To repeat, it is not that the cosmic, it is not that the cosmic level, the predetermined aspect of the war is negated in Sarala Mahabharata. It is not like that. The war had to take place. That was Krishna's will. So whether it takes place through direct intervention or through some other way, it doesn't really matter. It would have happened. As Krishna said in the Bhagavad Gita, that look, if you do not kill, don't think that they will live. I have already killed them. In the same way, at the cosmic level, Krishna has decided, at the cosmic level, the case is that the war would take place. But Krishna himself does not directly intervene. He doesn't intervene. He plays no role in the start of the war. The meaning of this is that humans will decide their own fate. It is not an external agent. The humans will decide their own fate. So this is something which is profoundly significant, that no one else but we are responsible for our actions. Another interesting thing is that Krishna in Sala Mahabharata does not guarantee anyone that surrender to me and I will protect you. There is no guarantee. There are people in Sala Mahabharata who have attained moksha because of Krishna. That has happened. But from Krishna, there is no guarantee to anyone that all you have to do is to surrender to me and I will protect you from everything. No. You will have to experience the fruit of your own action. That is a clear thing. But then moksha, of course, there are characters who get moksha, but let us set aside how they get moksha and all that, because that is not relevant to the present discussion. The only thing that I would like to point out here is that there is no guarantee given by Krishna to anyone in Sala Mahabharata that if they surrender themselves to him, he would protect them, he would save them from their karma and the fruits of their karma. No. Okay, and look at the moral issue in Vyasa Mahabharata and in Sala Mahabharata for Arjuna. When reconsider the moral issue and consider the problem in the context of Sala Mahabharata. Arjuna says that he would not start the fighting. Now, what could Krishna say by way of replying? All the discussion that has gone on in Vyasa Mahabharata through Bhagavad Gita, there is no place for that here. You cannot say that, look, Atma is imperishable, only the body dies, because Arjuna had no problem killing Bhishma, Drona, Karna. If they attack him, he would fight and either get killed or kill them. He had no problem. So the question of saying that only the body will die and the soul will not die, therefore an Atma will not die, therefore you are killing only the perishable thing and not the imperishable thing, that argument is irrelevant. That cannot be given to Arjuna, because he has no problem. He is willing to kill, he only doesn't want to start fighting. Similarly, the argument that you will get, if you are always a winner, if you lose, you go to Swarga and enjoy the pleasures of heaven, Swarga, and if you win, you enjoy the pleasures of the earth. That is of no consequence, because that kind of argument cannot even be given here, because that is not Arjuna's issue. He has come to fight, he will fight irrespective of whether he wins or loses. So the kind of arguments or things like you surrender yourself to me and I will save you from all sins if you think that killing them is sinful, that also is not applicable here, because he is willing to kill. There is nowhere Arjuna is not unwilling to kill. He is willing to kill, only that he does not want to start the war. So all the arguments that are given in Bhagavad Gita simply cannot be the arguments given to Arjuna, because Arjuna's moral problem is of a very different nature, and it is different, and because of the difference in nature, because the problem is of a different nature, the arguments that were given earlier, the arguments that were given by Krishna to Arjuna simply would not apply. So what could Krishna have said to Arjuna? Suppose Krishna would have engaged in an argument with Arjuna. What would he have said? He says, I don't want to start the war. He says, what would Krishna say? Let us imagine what Krishna would say. Krishna would say, look, you want them to attack you first? Suppose Bhishma uses a divine weapon. Where will you be? He will destroy all of you in 1 second. Where will there be time for a counter attack? Suppose, let us imagine that all that Arjuna is saying, I have no problem. I will. If attacked, I will attack. Now, if you say that look, the attack from the side can be so devastating that you will not be anywhere to be able to counter-attack. How significant is that position? I think it is not. It's not a very strong position. Really, it's not a very strong argument, because there is no weapon which Bhishma could use against Arjuna, for which Arjuna did not have a counter weapon. In fact, Arjuna had weapons. For example, Pasupatastra. That is something which nobody had. The all-destructive weapon of Bhagavan Shiva. That weapon no one had. So, if whatever weapon Bhishma would have used against Arjuna, Arjuna had a way of countering that. So, that was not Arjuna's problem. So, I have not been able to think as to what kind of argument could have been given to satisfy Arjuna that, look, it would be a good thing to start the fight. There is nothing. Arjuna was an extremely strong person, strong both in will, he had a very developed sense of discrimination, and he had all the divine weapons that anyone could. He had all the divine weapons, and some of them, even others, some of them, people in the Kaurava army, warriors in the Kaurava army did not have. So there was absolutely no fear at all that the attack from their side can be so devastating that there will be no time or there will be no opportunity for a counter attack. No, that position cannot be taken, and I cannot imagine what else Krishna would have been able to do, what else Krishna would have done, what arguments he could have used to persuade Arjuna to fight. So, what I am saying is that the way the story is rendered, that rendering does not leave any space for the kind of profound arguments that occur in Vyasa Mahabharata through Bhagavad Gita. That space is not there in the story. Now, if you impose that space, if you impose those arguments, okay, these arguments will simply dangle. They will not be relevant. So, Vyasa, the way he constructs the narrative, Sarala, there is no space for this. So, the resolution of Arjuna's conflict, the resolution of Arjuna's unwillingness to fight Arjuna's problem had to come in a different way, and that is how it came. So, it is not a question of lack of profundity. The attack, the feeling that Vyasa Mahabharata, the feeling that Sarala Mahabharata lacks dignity and profundity, that may be true, but at the same time, was there a place for this? The story was told in such a way that there was no space for this, and the way the story was told has its own merits, as we just now we have just discussed. Human beings will decide their fate. Innocents cannot be killed. Let the war be restricted to those who are directly involved with this. These issues that arise, which do not arise in an alternative version. Two different people, two different stories, two different time frames. So this is this there. One point I would like to make at this stage: it's not very clear to me why in the discussion, why in Krishna's advice to Arjuna, in Krishna-Arjuna conversation, the following things have not happened. For example, I don't know why. All that Krishna said in the beginning is that, look, you are not a loser. You are not a loser. You win or you lose. You kill or you win the war or get killed. You are not a loser at all. That's one. And the other thing is that if you don't fight, you will be denounced as a coward. So this is what he said. And then, of course, the discussion went to a very high plane. The deepest questions of life, death, and dharma, etc., were raised. That we have already seen. But there are other things that I don't know why they were not discussed. For example, just think, Arjuna had said that Arjuna had withdrawn from fighting because he didn't want to kill the cousins. That wouldn't have meant that the war would have stopped. No, only Arjuna would not be a part of it. And he, Arjuna, who had all the divine weapons at his command, He may not be the commander-in-chief of the Pandava army, but Dhriഷ്ടadumna was the chief. He may not have been the chief, but everybody knew that if the war was going to be won, it would be because of Arjuna. He had all the divine weapons, which would ultimately decide the fate of the war. So that was how it is. Now, had he withdrawn from the war, Duryodhana would not have stopped. The war would have taken place, and Arjuna would have seen his brothers, his relatives, the innocent soldiers being butchered. It was not their problem, Kauravas' problem. Arjuna is not fighting, the others are fighting. So they would fight the war and kill. Nobody else had the Bhima. Bhima had Bhima could not have won the war for the Pandavas. It is divine weapons which would win. There nothing Bhima could do against Bhishma, and nothing Bhima could have done against Karna or Drona. So it is the divine weapons. They decided. Now, without support of Arjuna and all those divine weapons, the knowledge of which he had at his command, the war would have been won by the Kauravas, and more importantly, the Pandavas and their relatives, their soldiers, all would have been butchered. Was that acceptable to Arjuna? Krishna could have asked, yes, you don't want to fight them because you don't want to fight your brothers, but that's not going to stop the war. The war would take place even without you. What would happen as consequence? Would it be satisfying to him? Would he think it was his dharma not to protect people who came to join the Pandava army, thinking that they would be protected by Arjuna? Was it all right? So these questions somehow never arose. So I have a feeling that too quickly the discussion on life, death, Atma, etc., took place far too quickly. Maybe these discussions or these arguments could have been presented, but anyway, the point is that it is not we who decide what should be presented, what should not be presented, because the poet who decides what kind of creation he is going to, what is it that he is going to create, and it is his logic. We respect that logic, but sometimes we think that probably maybe this is something which I would like to ask, but I have no answer. So this is the kind of feeling that one gets when one sort of thinks of Krishna's ways of persuading Arjuna to fight. So that is something which. So there are alternative renderings. So alternative renderings, we must see the beauty and the grace, the beauty and the grace, and the beauty and the grace of each rendering. So it is not that when poets write, one wants to improve what the other had done. That is not the idea. One wants to re-explore, one wants to reconsider, one wants to reconceptualize and see if the same things could be looked at in a different way. So different poets, different sensitivities, and different ways of rendering. We respect each. So what I was trying to sort of say so far is that the same problem, two different renderings, and each rendering, and we discuss the renderings, and we discuss the renderings to find what are the issues that one rendering raises and the other does not, not with the intention of criticizing anybody, but with the intention of enjoying two beautiful poetic creations.